So tell me a little bit more about CBDCs. I'm familiar with that, but I'm sure there's going to be people listening who maybe they've heard the term, but they don't really know what that means. So what are CBDCs and why are they a threat?
Okay, so CBDCs, that's a central bank digital currency. So if folks have studied, in all honesty, I've been doing this whole conspiracy thing like I shared for over 20 years. And back in the day, I always have this tendency to kind of say like, if it sounds kind of crazy, blah blah blah, but nowadays a lot of the stuff that we predicted or we studied, and again, we're just reading internal documents, not to get all Alex Jones, right? But they say it in their own words what their plans are. And these individuals, they have a definiteness of purpose. These organizations and institutions, they carry forward and they're pretty dang successful with their plans. Meanwhile, the masses are struggling to make ends meet, incapable of putting a good logical argument together often. And it just is no wonder why the enemies of freedom are just driving the ball down the field. So we work a lot of the work that we do. We work in mindset and spiritual practice and like becoming the best version of yourself, because we do have our work cut out for us. But if you dive deeper into some of these organizations, for the longest time, they wanted to have a cashless society so that they could control people. Because like it or not, we live in an economic world, buying and selling goods and services, food, housing our family. And if you can take away people's ability to conduct business freely amongst themselves outside of the government or these technocrats' control, then you're really able to socially engineer the public to change their behavior in many ways. So we now have the technology for these folks to actually pull this off. And the iteration of this cashless society is known as central bank digital currencies. This is in contrast to decentralized cryptocurrencies, of course. Like Bitcoin, for example, it's a decentralized system that's permissionless. This will be a digital currency, the central bank digital currencies, but it'll be controlled by central banks, like the Federal Reserve, for example. And so essentially, most of the financial transactions and the money that people use all over the world, especially maybe less so in developing countries, it's digital already. Venmo, PayPal, checking account transfer, even with a check, when you write a paper check, there's a transference from one bank to another in the Federal Reserve Clearinghouse. But they want to do away with cash, paper money, which makes it easier for people to do business privately or to give someone a cash tip that they can take under the table, for example. So when everything is digital, when they've eliminated, I'm not pushing forward this agenda, when they've eliminated paper money, then it all of a sudden becomes easier to surveil the money. And that's one piece. In many instances, though, we already are at that place for most people's transactions. And not to fault Bitcoin, but for most people that have purchased Bitcoin, unless they've done it directly from someone or used a peer-to-peer exchange, they've also been surveilled in that they scan their driver's license to do a know your customer check on most mainstream exchanges. But the surveillance is one piece, but what the real alarming part is what they do from there. And even the head of the Bank of International Settlements and all these big bankers and financial technocrats have even stated, we can use this, for example, to track and understand if someone's making a gun purchase. We can use this in order to encourage certain behaviors. So it's the socially engineering part through smart contracts, which is really worrisome for me. And as I shared before, this isn't some far-fetched thing. We saw in Canada during the height. In fact, I think this might have had something to do with really ending the lockdowns and a lot of this hysteria when there was pretty much an uprising, peaceful uprising. But these commercial truckers in Canada jammed up the entire system, and they went and parked in around the Parliament building, right? And basically made a big stink. Well, the Canadian government, they not only did they shut down the bank accounts of the actual truckers, but they targeted people that donated money to the truckers and shut their bank accounts down as well. So fast forward, when these central bank digital currencies are fully implemented, it'll make it very easy to do this. Not to mention, as I was sharing before, the socially engineering of behavior. A big piece of this has to do with carbon, right? A personal carbon allowance is something that the World Economic Forum is pushing. They even have a prototype, My Carbon Pass. And that's what the vaccine passport thing was kind of about as well. It wasn't about vaccines, it was about controlling people's movement.
Mm-hmm.
So it's a very big concern. And once those CBDCs are set up, it's very much going to be an advancement in this whole tyrannical system. That's why I'm a big proponent of decentralized cryptocurrencies, of creating close knit communities of geographic proximity where we can get each other's back. This guy's got the chickens over here. This guy's growing the food over here. We got the plumber, the carpenter, the teacher, the masseuse, and we trade amongst ourselves, whether we barter, whether we're using old silver coins, or whether we're using cryptocurrencies. It's really important for folks that are concerned about this to start laying that groundwork now. We don't want to be caught playing catch up. It may be too late for many people.